Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh. Welcome to another episode of the Mindful Muslim podcast from Inspirited Minds, where we discuss Islam, psychology, spirituality, and mental health. My name is Sarah Glamson, and I'm your podcast host for today. Before we go into this month's podcast, here's a little bit about our lovely guest today, Samia Quddus. She is a teacher and an author of Freya's Funny Feelings and the Taqdeer Life journal. We discuss so many important topics, such as her profession of teaching and now counseling, and through her experience, what she found is the biggest struggle that young children have with their mental health and well being today. We also talk about mindfulness and how we can be more mindful as sisters and mothers of childhood trauma and abuse. She also talks about the inspiration and ideas behind Freya's Funny Feelings and the Taqdeer Life Journal, a wonderful, wonderful initiative. You really need to get a copy for yourself. And we really hope that you enjoy it. Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh. Welcome to another episode of the Mindful Muslim podcast, where today we are joined by the beautifully talented Samia Quddus. Assalamu alaikum, Samia.
Walaikum salam wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh. That was quite an introduction. Thank you.
How are you keeping?
I'm good, alhamdulillah. Yeah, I'm good. Thank you. How are you keeping?
I'm well, can't complain. So why don't you start by just introducing yourself and what you do?
So I initially trained as a primary school teacher, and I'd been teaching for almost 15 years. I later specialised in social, emotional, mental health, and that took me into special educational needs. So I worked as an SEN teacher in Doha, Qatar for around, I think, 4.5 years, about 4 years.
How was
And that really, it was amazing. I absolutely loved my experience there. It's very different, but I loved working with the mix of children from various different countries in one place. So you had the local children, you had the expat children, and just it was a really lovely atmosphere. I really enjoyed my work with the kids, and I learned so much from them as well. So yeah, I just developed my interest in special educational needs, and I wanted to take this further. And I always had an interest in child psychology, so I thought, you know what, now would be a really good time to develop my skills. And so I then did a degree in counselling therapy with children and young people, which alhamdulillah I completed last year. So yeah,
Congratulations.
Thank you so much. Thank you. Yeah, really tough, but I got there in the end.
It can be quite
Yeah.
tough, yeah. But I mean, from the work that you're doing, that's mainly what I wanted to talk about, is that you've taken such an ordinary profession and kind of made it extraordinary. You've gone that extra mile. So, and we were talking a little bit about this before, but what actually drives you? What are your motivations?
So, do you know, it's a really, I think my motivations come down to the fact that I enjoy my work. I enjoy being around kids. I enjoy learning. I enjoy growing. I think that's definitely something within me that I enjoy developing, and growth is a really important aspect. And I think that even Islamically, we are encouraged to grow. You know, we're not encouraged to stay boxed. And I think that's a motivation that I have, that actually I've got this skill, I've developed this technique, and so what can I do with it? Do I go and do something completely different, or can I enhance it? So I guess my motivation comes down to, how can I enhance this? How can I make it better? And it's something that I didn't really realize that I had within me until the last couple of years, to be honest. I'm always looking to grow. in various different ways. And sometimes I've had a couple of knocks, and you know, even through that, I'm like, yeah, I actually grew through that. This is how I grew. So I think that's motivation.
That's a very, very powerful statement that you made just there. I think that a lot of people, especially right now, are finding it difficult to stay motivated, to stay on top of things, to continue growing. What do you think about that? Like, what advice would you have for these people who are kind of stuck right now?
Do you know, we all go through that, and even I go through that phase. You know, very recently I went through that stuck phase where I was just like, you know what, I can't be thinking about doing anything at the moment. And it's really important to listen to that. It's really important to give that a bit of space and acknowledge that and think, okay, this is how I'm feeling, and what can I do about it? Where is it coming from? What can I do? And maybe I do need a couple of days, or maybe a week or so, maybe even just a few weeks, just give myself time to not do anything at all. But coming back into that routine again, it is quite important to then develop a routine. You know, it's not great being in that stuck state. You know, giving yourself things to do, maybe manageable tasks, things that you can achieve. You know, it don't have to be big things, but just small things which then lead up to you then going back to how you were when you were managing to just carry on without that feeling of feeling stuck.
Right.
That's been my technique. But yeah, we all experience that.
It's ups and downs, basically.
Definitely ups and downs. Yeah. We're not really meant to be completely on the same level all the time anyway. We do have those ups and downs, but it's recognizing that and working with it.
I think that's the most important bit, and it takes a while. Like, you don't just get it on the first try or the second try. You just have to, I guess, try and see what works for you, and then slowly build up that kind of growth, as you said. So you did mention that you work with children and young people, and you worked in Doha, and you're working in the UK right now, right? So I'm just trying to understand, there must have been some kind of cultural difference or difference in the way that you approach the children. How exactly did you do that with the children in Doha and the children in the UK?
So the children in Doha, again, there was a mix of kids. So I had the expat children as well as the local children. It was an international school. It was a British international school. They have a sister school here in the UK. So again, with the expat children, it was very easy to develop that relationship because they kind of recognized you as somebody from their place, you know. But with the local children, it was slightly different because they viewed you as slightly alien. Like, you know, I am visibly Muslim, as you can see. You know, I wear hijab, and I used to wear hijab then. And so, you know, a lot of the kids would be very intrigued. They're like, "Miss, are you Muslim?" I'm like, "Yes. Can you not tell that I'm Muslim?" So you were something different to them. So again, going back to your question, it was me finding out about their culture. So in order to develop that relationship, it was very much important that I found out about what life was like for them in Doha, and then trying to find things that I could relate to them through that. So that was the difference that I had.
That must have been very interesting for you as a counselor in your profession, just seeing all the different things, that the way that you can relate to the children and young people.
Yeah, I think one thing I've realized through my work, even through teaching, but more recently through being a therapist, is that you have to display an element of humaneness. You have to show you. You know, if you come in as, you know, sometimes you get teachers with certain personas and they're very strict and they're very teacher-like. And even with counselors and therapists, you know, they have a bit of a rigidity. Young people won't relate to that. Children won't relate to that. And so if you can show you that you are you, but still maintain those boundaries, still maintain that professionalism, you can create really amazing relationships and really make a difference, which is what I'm learning a lot through my work now. I mean, I went from primary and I now work in a secondary school, which was a massive jump for me. But again, it's that relatability and being able to kind of, yeah, I'm kind of on your level, but I'm not on your level, but I get it, you know.
Yeah,
And being unique, being you know, and that's what they really kind of pick up on. Not
yeah.
being weird. I think that's something that one um a young person described, that, Miss, you're not weird, like, you know, I can
Mm,
actually talk to you. And I think that's really important, because young people pick up on a lot more things than adults. They're
they
much more
are,
aware.
yeah, they
Yeah,
are very observant, I found as well.
they are. Yeah.
So, in your experience with children, then, what do you feel is kind of the children and young people? What do you feel is the biggest struggle that they face, or most of the young people who come to you? What have you noticed any trend in what they're
Mm.
experiencing, what they're struggling with right now in terms of mental health?
I think the biggest struggle for them has been, especially for those who are thinking about taking their GCSEs and their A levels, especially those who had planned to take their GCSEs and A levels this year. I mean, today the GCSE results came out, and majority of people, young people, have done really, really well. But with the A level results, what we've seen, it's just, what I'm experiencing is a lot of anxiety, frustration, anger. I mean, you can imagine that you work so hard for something, you do the coursework, you do the revision, even mental energy that goes into studying, and then all of a sudden you can't do it, right? And all of a sudden, you know, you can't show or demonstrate your true potential, your academic potential. And I know that a lot of young people, you know, they're a little bit lax when
Yeah,
it comes to studying, but when they come towards the last 6 months before their exams, they really get going and they really just want to try and do their best. And there just seems to be a really sort of, what's the point attitude, which I completely get.
right.
um, but maybe things will change. This is the first time they've experienced something like this, as well as everyone, to be honest. um, But anxiety seems to be something that keeps coming up, a sense of uncertainty, what's going to happen, what's going to happen with my future. Um, the school that I work at, there's, you know, expectations as well. Like they really do feel under pressure, young people generally now. And this, you know, social media and having to portray and be perfect, or be seen as being perfect and ticking all of those boxes,
Yeah.
it's a lot of pressure.
And I think this kind of goes back to what you were saying about how everyone is unique, you know?
Mm.
So if if they kind of focus on that, that I'm unique and I have all these pressures, it can kind of
Mm.
ease their mindset in a way.
Yeah.
Have you tried that in your work and seen like how does that work when you're trying to tell someone but you're unique? Because a lot of people do hear that, you know. I hear that
Mm.
sometimes too. Someone tells me, well, but you're unique, so it's okay, you know,
Yeah.
you do you, you know what I mean?
Yeah. Yeah. It's this comparison culture.
Mm,
And, you know, adults do it, you know, and if we think about systemic thinking, and we don't know what their family environments can be like as well, if there's comparison taking place there. I mean, I know that I experienced it when I was growing up, or so and so's done this and doing that, and it's really hard then to think about, you know, you as an individual. But yeah, the way that I try to manage that is just explain to them that you're doing your best. As long as you feel that you're doing your best, that is the most important thing. And, you know, being good enough, are you happy with being good enough, or are you striving towards perfection? Because no one's perfect. Not even the most perfect person that looks and appears to be perfect is not perfect. So you're only setting yourself up to fail, because perfection doesn't really exist. It's literally just a filter that's been applied. But if you feel as though you are good enough, then you can continue to strive to be better and do better.
right.
Um, so, yeah, that's the sort
That's
of.
an amazing sentiment. Wow. Mashallah. I mean, the way that you put that is just, that's exactly what it is, you know? Um, in that vein, then, do you have any kind of advice for families or even teachers and education providers when it comes to dealing with young people then who are experiencing all these pressures at one go? Do you have any advice basically to kind of give them so that they can help these young people rather than increase the pressure on it?
I think we kind of go in with, let's try and fix this mentality sometimes, right? We'd like to offer solutions, and even sometimes in our work we will be offering solutions or offering techniques to help. I think initially, and again, this is something that's important for parents and educators alike, really listen to what they're saying. Give it space, let them process it, don't try and fix it initially. Just be there, be present with them, and really try and empathize that, yeah, do you know what, I can get why that's difficult for you. I can see why it's so hard. And allow them to express that and allow them to be vulnerable, and then work on, right, how can we move from this, or what can we do to make it better? I think that's something that we as adults, we tend to forget, because we go in wanting to, let's try and make this better, but actually young people need to be heard. They like to be heard. It's important for them to be listened to. So yeah, that's something it's an easy thing to do. We can all do it. We can all be there, we can be present, we can listen, and we can empathize. So maybe, yeah, develop the skills of empathy and
so focus less on the problem solving and more on just being part of their support network, just supporting them and listening to them.
Yeah.
Right.
And let them know that if they do experience something, that they can come and speak to you about it without thinking, right, they're just going to offer me a solution. Are they actually going to listen to what I have to say?
Yeah, that is an important point I found as well. And I feel like, especially when you have parents from an older generation, they're very focused on giving solutions or telling you what you've done wrong, rather than actually working with you and listening to you. In general, I found a lot of people, even in my practice, coming to me with these particular complaints, that my parents are not listening to me, my teachers are not supporting me, no one understands me.
Yeah.
So I guess
no one understands me. Yeah, it's quite a big statement, isn't it? That's telling that is it in a nutshell. No one understands me. Yeah. It's a very isolated place to be, very lonely. Yeah.
And so if we can just try and focus on giving support, then, as you said, that is, I think, the best thing, because from that, then it can kind of create a relationship of support, of not just one-sided support, but mutual support as well, and understanding and trust as well, I feel, which is a very important element.
Such an important element. Yeah. With young people, especially, they need to trust you.
And I feel that trust breaks really easily for young people. Have you found that in your experience as well?
Do you know, in our work, we know about rupture and repair. We know that, you'll have great moments and something will happen in that relationship, and that's the rupture. And I think that if you can try, that's normal part of every relationship, isn't it, that you have rupture and repair? And in terms of trust, sometimes you have to break confidentiality, sometimes you have to break trust, especially if there's a concern that comes up, and you have to then speak to maybe the head teacher or whoever, safeguarding officer. But I think if you can be honest with the young people and say that, look, this has happened, and you may not feel as though you can trust me, but I just want you to know that I am here because I want to see the best for you. So again, you come from an angle where actually I'm here for you, and this is why I've had to do this, but you can still trust me. But I understand why you may not feel as though you can. So
I feel like that's a level of transparency then, and openness that you have with them, instead of thinking, I think a lot of people, including families or support networks for a young person, would think, I know better, so listen to me, and just do what I'm telling you to do and trust me. But then they fail to realize that they can't just take your word for it. There has to be a level of openness, a level of where you you're on the same level of understanding, basically. I think we can talk about this topic for a long
Yeah, we can talk about
time.
this topic.
So I'm gonna kind of segue then to one of the main struggles that I think we face as a, not just as a Muslim community, but as a society, a global society, is child abuse and child trauma. So can you talk a little bit about that in your experience and your knowledge about child abuse and why it's something that just keeps recurring over and over again?
Yeah, I mean, abuse can be emotional, physical, it can be sexual, it can even be neglect. You know, I mean, it's not just limited to those things that I've mentioned, it can be so many different things. And it's basically where the child is not in a safe place, or where the child is not around people who have demonstrated that they are capable of looking after the child with safety and with adequate concern. And so in terms of trauma, again, there are different types of trauma. Sometimes I mean, I know that I used to, before my therapy course, before I used to associate trauma with like quite big events, like maybe a death, or maybe, you know, a murder, or just, you know, major events. But actually trauma can be triggered from day-to-day life things, to be honest. From the readings that I've done, it can be, you know, simple things like maybe moving from one school to another school, moving from one country to another country, maybe moving homes, maybe losing a pet, or just things that happen in life which adults may not necessarily think as being traumatic, but these can elicit or trigger trauma responses. But it can vary. It's so many different things. Yeah, so many different things. I think now, because of Black Lives Matter, there's been more talk around intergenerational trauma. We know that even in our culture, for example, South Asian culture, the partition, you know, the intergenerational trauma that took place with that, so the trauma traveling down generations, and how that's impacted relationships, how that's impacted mindsets. So yeah, there's so many different avenues of trauma. It's just really vast. Yeah.
So what do you think then we can do on a personal level, but also on an advocacy level, like if you're aware that this is happening?
It depends. It's such a big topic. So which area in particular are you referring to?
I guess I'm more talking about right now we have so many children who are at home. I mean, I know schools have started again, but things have not really gone back to normal, you know, and the cases of childhood abuse and childhood trauma are on the rise constantly, even if you look at the statistics. So in that vein, then what kind of advice would you have just for anyone if they notice something, or if they're even just taking out their frustration on a child or on a young person? You know, what can we do?
Yeah, so if you have witnessed a child, or you definitely know that a child is in danger, your responsibility, the action that you would take, would be to contact social services or to contact the police. Yeah, that would be the most important thing to do. Normally, children who are in those environments, the school system is aware. So I know that many schools, because of lockdown and because many children who have managed to go into school, vulnerable kids as we call them, I know that the deputy head teacher or safeguarding leads at schools have been in contact with families just to check up on how things are going with the children or with the child. They are never just left alone. So again, it's that school home link that's very important. But if you come across a case or a situation where you've witnessed a child being in immediate danger or has been abused physically, you know, you witness a child being hit quite aggressively, I mean, you would have that responsibility of you then to contact an authority is very, very important.
Right. But then as you're saying it, I'm kind of thinking that if if that would happen in front of me, I would probably
Mm,
think 100 times. I'd have that hesitancy to actually
mm,
take action because that's not my child. I don't know that
mm,
lady really well.
mm,
Or it's someone, or it's the opposite. It's someone you know really well, and you're like, how can I do that to my family then?
mm.
So I guess it's kind of a catch-22 situation. But as you
It
said,
is, yeah,
go ahead.
it is, but the safety and the welfare of a child who is being abused is the most important thing.
Yeah.
And for them to be in that environment is doing more harm than good. That maybe actually parents or those adults require support, that they are not generally bad. No one is all good or all bad, right? But maybe generally they just require support and they need authorities to come in and help manage the situation at home because maybe they're just not unable to cope.
Mm.
So it
So
comes
you'd
from
actually
that.
be doing them a favor.
In a way, you'd be helping them too. I mean, don't know, but that would be, you could possibly be helping them too. Maybe they just haven't managed to get the help that they need. Maybe they
Mm.
don't want to receive the help. But yeah, at the same time, placing a young child's life in danger, it definitely
Yeah.
be important to get someone involved. Yeah.
Okay.
It's
Um,
hard. Yeah, it's
it's
difficult.
hard, yeah. And I
Mm,
guess it's
mm,
because it's like you said, it's a very broad topic and very multi-dimensional. It's kind of
mm,
difficult to make a judgment call in that particular moment.
mm,
But as you said, if we do see it happening, then we need to stand up, and even if it's just in a polite way, or
mm,
even in an, as you said, in an anonymous way, just call social services or the police or someone,
mm.
that can actually create a difference and stop this issue, or
Mm.
yeah, from spreading, I guess.
Yeah, and
Because
getting worse.
yeah,
Yeah.
and we can be then closer to eradicating child abuse,
Mm,
inshallah, hopefully.
mm.
um I did want to also talk about your book, Freya's Funny Feelings. So, for those of you who don't know, Samia is well known for her beautiful book. I actually have a copy of it, Freya's Funny
Do
Feelings.
you?
I do. I bought one for
Okay.
my, I don't know if you remember, I bought one for my niece, I think, from you. And
Oh, okay.
yeah, and I loved it. Wish I had got more
Thank you.
copies, actually. Hopefully, I'll be putting in an order for a few
So,
more copies. It's a really
okay.
beautiful book. Where did you get the
Thank
idea
you.
for it?
So, when I was teaching, very early years of when I started out teaching, I'd have so many kids when it came to certain subjects like maths or English.
Mhm.
Miss, I don't feel too well, or miss, my tummy feels a bit funny, or I need to go to the toilet. And, I wasn't a very sympathetic teacher. I'd be like, no, it's time to get started now. We've got to get going now.
Right.
You know, but as the years went on, I then remembered, gosh, I used to be like that kid. I used to be like that in year 6 when it
Mm.
came to maths. And all of a sudden, I used to develop this anxiety when it came to this particular subject because it stressed me out. And so, this is what was happening with those children. When I went to Doha, and again, I noticed similar things going on. We have the expression butterflies in the tummy. And I say, oh, you got butterflies in your tummy, and they're like, what, I've actually got butterflies in my tummy? Like, no, you don't actually have butterflies in your tummy, but that's the sensation. Does it feel like it's fluttering? And I'm like, yeah, yeah, yeah. And so they kind of placed the seed in my head that this is something worth exploring. You can actually create a book around this that not only uses the analogy, but also the analogy of the butterflies and the metaphor, the development that takes place when the character experiences these butterfly feelings, and how she learns to manage and understand these emotions, and how she then becomes this, yeah, I get it now, but I can deal with it. I can
Mm.
accept it now. So the expression butterflies in the tummy, it just all kind of came together. I was like, I need to find a way to link anxiety with this and with that. And yeah, that was something I did in 2017. Yeah, December 2017, I got writing on my script, and
Yeah.
I'm going to do this. Yeah.
And how was the process
So
for you to kind of get to publishing it? Because I know for any publication, there's like 100 different doubts you get at the back of your mind.
yeah, it was really tough actually. It was really hard because I've never written a children's story. This was my first time, and I wanted to make sure that I was doing it justice and that the children would understand. Luckily, because I have worked in the classroom, I know about, you know, language devices that can really attract children's attention as well, like using alliteration, using kind of like funny kind of words as well. So I had that knowledge already. What I had to do was create the manuscript and send it off to a professional author and get her to kind of go over it and just give me feedback. And that in itself took a good couple of months as well. And then it was, right, what do I do with this? Do I go down the self-publishing route, or do I try and publish it with, you know, a publisher? In the end, I decided to self-publish it because I thought, actually, I'm still going to have to do a lot of the work, even if it does go via a publisher. So yeah, it can be very difficult, but alhamdulillah, it wasn't too bad. I had a friend who was an amazing artist. She did illustrations for me. And then with the printing, I went through a crowdfunding campaign. Alhamdulillah, I managed to get the printing costs through that, and it worked out.
It really
Yeah.
did. I do strongly recommend everyone go and get a copy of Freya's Funny Feelings.
Thank you.
It is available now, I guess. I'm not sure where the details
Yeah,
are.
it's available on the website
Okay, yes.
www.freyaspunnyfeeling.com, or it's also available on Amazon if you're in the UK as well. Yeah, well, alhamdulillah, it's done quite well. It's in about 25 primary schools. So
Wow.
it's being used since January actually of this year. And the intention is hopefully to increase that because I think we need it now.
Yeah,
A lot more than we needed it before. So
definitely, definitely. But you haven't just done a book for uh, your children and young people. You've also done a journal, a reflective journal. Do you want to talk a little
yeah,
bit about Taqdeer?
Taqdeer I started creating in April 2017.
Wow.
It was something that I couldn't find at the time. I couldn't find an Islamic themed gratitude journal that just focused on gratitude. Loads of wonderful products out there for the Muslim market, you know, on various topics, but they all seem to have a mix of everything.
Mm.
And I was like, you know what? Gratitude and expressing shukr is such a big thing in our religion, right? It's described as a form of worship. And why isn't there anything that actually just focuses on this alone? So what I then did, because I started developing it in April 2017, my therapy course began in September 2017. And then I started to research a lot of psychology in relation, and then psychotherapy as well,
Right.
all in relation to gratitude, and
And
just
that's how
making
it came.
links and bringing, yeah, merging those links together.
That's very interesting. I have a copy of the journal and it is very
Do
beautiful. It
you?
guides you. I'm telling you, yeah, I'm a big fan. I don't think you understand.
Okay.
um, no, genuinely, it's the way that it guides you and the format of it, and just there's tiny little details that you have throughout the book that really get you to think and connect these dots, as you've said. Really, it is a beautiful beautiful idea, and I do hope that a lot of people can find solace in it and healing,
Mm,
because for me
mm,
personally it has really helped me, especially right
mm,
now, to kind of be more grateful, to reflect
mm,
a little bit more, but then also appreciate that, you know, my religion actually has thought of this. It's just
mm.
that I wasn't aware about it, or I
Yeah.
hadn't linked it as well.
Mm.
So
You
yeah.
know, a big part of our religion is self-awareness, and I didn't know that until I started doing my course, because I was then starting to research and trying to merge in faith-based principles into my work and more about my practice as well. And I didn't know that self-awareness was such a huge thing, like knowing more about you, your responses, your triggers, and all of these things which are important to your growth. I had no idea at all. And so gratitude and incorporating that within Taqdeer was very, very important. And that's something that I feel as I've managed to do. It is different. I mean, at the time when I created it, I think now there are a couple of people out there who have, taken on a couple of themes a bit similar to it, which is, they're doing their thing, I'm doing my thing. But I am feeling, for example, there's an I am feeling section on every single journal entry page. And that's, again, related to what we know in psychotherapy, that actually thinking about those emotions, processing those emotions, putting it down on paper, and the importance of putting it down on paper. And there's an explanation in the journal as to why that's important as well.
Yeah. So it kind of is really taking these concepts and planting it in your head in a way that you're understanding where they come from, but then you're also kind of relating your experiences and your feelings to it at the same time. It's a very personal journey. Alhamdulillah.
Yes.
SubhanAllah, I really do believe that everyone can benefit from it. So then just moving on then to how all of these things link up then to mental well-being, because a lot of people say, well, okay, being grateful, fine, but if I have a mental health problem, what can it really do for me, right? And if I'm struggling, or if I have all this pressure on me, then what can gratitude do, or what can reflection do? So then how in your opinion, how do you think it links up to mental health or mental well-being?
When people are going through a really tough time, it is really, really tough. And it can be incredibly difficult to find those moments of gratitude. I know that I've experienced that. And in fact, that's what triggered me to then create Taqdeer, because I was going through a really difficult time. And it was so hard. It's about shifting that mindset. I was, for example, I can only speak from my experience at the moment, but it was such a difficult time for me, and everything just felt so negative, But then the moment I started to think about, right, I need to find something that I'm grateful for today, whatever it is, even if it's the most smallest of things, the sun is shining, or I've had this to drink, or I ate this, or I went for a walk, it gives me something to feel like there is some kind of purpose, or I feel good about this. And then eventually your mind shifts because you're looking out for things which will bring you a sense of gratitude, it's like a gratitude mindset. You're developing that. It takes time. It doesn't happen overnight.
That's very true. I completely agree with that, because whenever we're going through a hard time, it's hard to think about the goodness, to think about the things we can be positive about. And that's where things like journaling and reflections and gratitude can come in. Are there any other ways that you would strongly recommend to help when you're going through a difficult time?
I think the most important thing is to have someone that you can talk to as well. You need to have a support base around you. We are humans. We are people. The way that we've been created, we are made for connection. And lockdown and this whole COVID has kind of made people a bit isolated in some respect as well. But it's so important to reach out, and it's so important to have someone that you can connect with and that you can talk to. Validate those emotions, give it space, but don't stay with it. Don't stay stuck with it. Think about, right, what can I look forward to with my future? What can I do? And have people that you can talk to, sound people that are happy to listen to you.
That's the most important thing. A lot of people that, when you were speaking, you just reminded me, a lot of people would take that as an excuse and say, okay, I have all of these coping mechanisms, and I do pray and I do dua, so I'm good. You know, I don't need to go to a therapist. I don't need to seek counseling or some kind of professional support because I'm okay. I'm dealing with it on my own. But what would you say? What would you say to someone then who kind of comes to you saying this, that I don't need counseling. I'm okay.
Do you know, I've actually heard really, like, this is ages ago, right? When I was growing up, I heard people from who are very practicing state things like, well, if you have faith, you don't need counseling because you should feel strong through God's, every the scriptures and everything that you have, that you should feel, strength from your religion. But actually, we have figures in those prophetic times who were going through really tough times. The Prophet Muhammad, peace be upon him, he went through so much hardship, and we see stories of him experiencing emotions, really raw emotions, when he lost his kids, when he lost his uncle, when he was being persecuted, and he had people around him to talk to. He didn't just go to Allah, he didn't just go and seek solace in God. He also had a base where he could talk to people about it. He had Khadija, his wife, initially, and then that grew, So that in itself demonstrates the importance of having a connection with people that you can talk to. But in regards to counseling, if going back to your question, that if I have faith, I don't need. Allah didn't make us to be like that. He didn't give us an immunity that, right, you have faith and that's it. You're not going to experience difficult events, or if you do experience difficult events, you don't need outside support. In fact, our religion very much recommends that actually, if you need support in terms of like therapy, then you need to seek that. That's okay to seek. But I think it's the stigma that's associated with psychological support. That's a difficulty.
And have you found that children are more, or young people are more open-minded about seeking counseling or psychological help than older people would be?
It depends, Sometimes I think at school there's a peer issue in terms of what are my friends going to think of me.
Okay.
Yeah, that can come up, that I don't want them to know that I come and see you, or I don't want them to know about this. So that comes up with them. Again, it's this whole idea of being different, right? We want to fit into that mold of we're perfect and we're okay and everything's all good and lovely. But with adults, yeah, it really differs, it really does. There are some adults who are really open to it and realize that actually I need a little bit more support here. So I'm going to do this, whereas some are just completely against it.
Right.
Yeah.
So it's not just black and white, there's like a whole range
It's
of...
not as black and white. No, I mean, even from your experience, you've probably seen similar as well, isn't it? That regardless of the age, it can vary. It really does.
Yeah. So then, just kind of in this similar vein, what advice would you give to a young person who is struggling right now in this climate? I mean, we're in summer holidays, I think, towards the tail end of summer holidays, but there's still so much going on. There's so much uncertainty. So what would you like to tell them all right now?
It's tough. It's okay. It's really, really tough. And it is tough. And there is uncertainty. And it's rubbish. And it's crap. And it's horrible. But it will get better. There is, we hear that expression, light at the end of the tunnel. There is that there going on. And you need to seek support. You need to have people around you that you can talk to. Very, very important that you have people that you can, your friends or family members that you can just speak to.
Yeah. Just have a Zoom session.
Yeah, just have a Zoom session.
Just do
And
that.
just offload. Yeah, and just get it off your chest and talk to someone about it. Don't go into doing anything destructive, self-destructive as a coping mechanism. Think about things which are going to be helpful for you. Maybe going out for a walk, getting some fresh air, getting some sun, having a routine. Routine is so important, especially in times of uncertainty. It creates a sense of safety. do things which are good for you and think about your future. Just keep thinking about where you want to be in your future.
Right. Future thinking. I've heard about that. That's like a really new concept, I feel. Um, I was reading about it the other day, future journaling. So you really,
I've not heard of that.
have you
Okay, where
not?
you want to be? Right?
Yeah,
No, I haven't.
so think about where you want to be and then like write it down or write a letter to yourself for the future. It's really
Wow.
interesting.
Yeah.
I mean, I had my
Yeah.
doubts because we're all about mindfulness, being present in the moment, don't focus on all the things that can go wrong in the future. But then
Yeah.
I tried writing like a letter to myself, and
Mm.
I haven't even reached the stage where I can open it again because it's a letter to me in the future. But just writing it down for me was so beneficial
Yeah.
because I realized that,
Mm.
well, actually, most of the things I'm worried about haven't even happened yet and
Mm.
probably will never happen.
Yes.
So,
Yes. I used to be like that,
yeah.
Sarah. I was always a worry about hypothetical situations. It just completely zapped the joy from the present moment. That's all it does. But yes, future thinking in the sense of goals, aspirations, hopes,
Mm.
dreams, all positive things as opposed to what's going to go wrong. It's easy to go down that route. So
It's
easy
so
to go
easy.
down that route.
I feel like
Mm,
it's a temptation. Your mind is just tuned or focused to go down that road and think about all the wrong
mm,
things that would happen rather than
yeah,
actively trying to think about the positives.
yeah,
That's actually what I found in my experience is it's a knee-jerk reaction because
mm,
from a young age we're always um, I wouldn't say encouraged but taught rather to look at what's
mm.
wrong and then make it right, but then
True.
all the things that
Yes,
are right
that's
are not
so
really
true.
focused on. Have you
Yeah,
found that as
because they
well?
don't need to be focused on, right? Yeah, totally, totally
Yeah.
makes sense.
So then
Yeah.
you kind of reach a mindset where you're only thinking about the mistakes or what went
Mm,
wrong. And
mm,
because of that habit, you haven't really developed a habit of thinking, well, these things have gone right, or these things are
yes,
positive that I can
yes,
be grateful for, and
yeah.
then keep them kind of with me. So then it's more
Mm,
balanced.
mm,
So that's like what I
yeah,
found in it. It's really, really hard to do that. So most of my letter to
yes.
myself was just filled with those negative things then. And then I realized, okay, I'm going to try and balance it. I'm going to think about the positives, as you
Mm,
said, or things that can go right, my goals and aspirations, and then
mm.
kind of balance it in that way. But it's hard to do.
It is hard to do, but if you start thinking positively,
Mm-hmm.
that will impact your behaviors and that may potentially impact the future as well. I've forgotten that term, but it's almost as though you are determining the future by being so negative at the moment.
Yes, yes.
Yeah, it's almost as though it's going to end up failing anyway. So I might as well just be like this. But actually, no, if you employ a different kind of mindset, I can't remember the name, prophetic something, I'm not quite sure.
You're talking about
Um,
uh, prophetic fallacy? Is that what you're talking about?
the prophetic fallacy, I'm
No,
not
maybe
sure.
it's self-fulfilling prophecy.
That's it. That's it. That's
Yeah.
it. That's it. Yes, that's the one. Yeah,
Yeah,
it becomes a self-fulfilling prophecy. You just do that.
yeah,
Your behaviors can shape so much. That's the truth. Your actions and your mindset shape so much.
yeah. And for our viewers, self-fulfilling prophecy is just basically when you set yourself up for what you're thinking about, your worst fears, and you say that if this is going to happen, and you're so
Mm.
focused on this thing happening, this thing going wrong, then chances are it probably will turn out that way.
Yeah.
But then, yeah, but then as we're saying, focus on the positive, on all the things
Mm.
that can go right, and put your
Mm.
best foot forward, basically.
Yeah.
And then it'll be like using the self-fulfilling prophecy in a positive way.
Mm.
Yeah.
And having the awareness and knowledge that things aren't going to be smooth, there'll be ups and downs, and that is part of life. That is part of your journey.
Mm.
It's not all meant to be smooth riding and perfect, and yeah.
But you see, a lot of people, I find, myself included, would tell, if you're telling me this, I would tell you, well, that's easier said than done. You're not the one going through it, I
It is
am.
easier said than done. It is. It's so easier said than done. It is. But then what are you supposed to do? Are you going to carry on staying in that rut and staying in that? That's to me is a feeling of stuckness, because you're basically, what you're saying to yourself is, I can't do anything about this, so I'm not going to do anything. Or are you going to be like, well, I'm going to hope for the best. I'm going to try and, like you said, put my best foot forward, and I'm going to work towards that. And at the end of the day, success comes from Allah, right? So even if things don't pan out the way that I wanted it to pan out, at least I know that I tried, which is better than not doing anything at all and just staying with that.
Yeah. Just quickly, I also wanted to talk about young people. You did mention a little bit peer pressure, and that can determine a lot of the decisions that young people make in school and at home as well, like in all spheres of their life. So can you talk a little bit about then peer pressure, and then what advice would you give someone who's so tempted to just try and fit in with their peers, but it's going to be at the expense of who they are or their health or their well-being?
You know, when you grow up, when you're like my age, you'll realize how important it is to be unique. You'll realize how important it is to be an individual and to have that sense of solidness that I am proud to be who I am. But when you're young, it again, the pressures to fit in, it's so immense. You know, when I was growing up, it'd be about trainers, it'd be about magazines, it'd be about, you know, what I consider to be really small stuff. But as the years go on, you know, as generations change, there's so much more now in terms of comparisons. It's the latest, I mean, quite expensive things like mobile phones, or who went on which holidays, or where did you go on for a break. So there's much more comparison. When you realize that you are unique and that you are an individual, that will help to develop your own self-esteem, that will help to develop your own sense of self-worth, that will help to develop your own confidence. You won't necessarily care about what others are doing because you're so solid in yourself. And those traits are so important to have. So important to have.
So just focusing on that then, on how different you can be. And I think also what you've said is so important, because we don't realize that we were created different for a reason. Like God created everyone different for a reason, you know? And so kind of giving into that and accepting it, but then also working on the bits that you can work on, like your weaknesses or what you're not good at, then that kind of mindset can immediately help you in terms of making good decisions for yourself, looking after yourself, but then also being there for other people, your friends, your parents, your teachers, even anyone, you know, essentially.
Yeah, I was going to say that having a sense of self-worth is so important for young girls in particular, because they will experience so much more in that. I mean, you know, if you're coming from a South Asian family, generally speaking, the expectations that there are on girls, but if you have a solid sense of self-worth, honestly, you will be amazing in life. Like, you will not succumb to peer pressure because you're so secure in yourself, and that's the aim, to be secure in who you are as a person.
But then, as you've said, that growing up as a South Asian woman is hard. And I mean, I'm not from the South Asian community, but even from my community, I think just growing up as a woman in general in a Muslim community is hard.
Yeah, it's hard.
And there's so much associated in just that, you know. So what kind, from a counseling, from a therapeutic standpoint, what advice would you then give to parents who get a little baby girl and who's, you know, who have a daughter, in terms of growing them up or raising them? I know it's a big
It's
question.
such a big question. It's such a big question. Where do
I
I
know.
start? Do you know what I would say to a parent?
Mm-hmm.
I would say to a parent of a daughter is that be sure that your daughter knows where her position is in Islam.
Okay.
Her position as a woman in Islam. She will not need to go searching for that elsewhere.
Wow.
She will not need empowerment elsewhere if she knows what her position is in her religion. That will be enough for her.
Wow.
That will give you your self-worth. That will give you yourself as everything, because you know that how God views you as a woman, how he created you as a woman, and how you are to be treated as a female, whether you are a daughter, a sister, a wife, you know, those 3 areas in our life, okay, which are important, right? That is enough. Yeah, that's what I would say to
So an equally big answer for an equally big question. That is very amazing. I'm just thinking about that, and yeah, I think a lot of problems can be solved if, as a young girl, when you're going through adolescence and you have these identity issues coming up, if you just understand, or if I just understood that this is my role, I think I really could have saved myself from a lot of grief earlier on in my life. And I feel that it does come a bit too late for a lot of girls, even from talking to friends or even talking to other people. It comes a bit late. And then when it does come late, you're probably already married, okay? Or in such a different sphere of your life, dealing with some wrong decisions that you may have made, or you're just lost and you have no idea what you're doing because you didn't realize your role as a girl, or your rights even as a girl in Islam.
That's your position, where you stand, your rights, your roles, you know, those are so important. And I think that, again, I'll go back to South Asian community, that becomes enmeshed with patriarchal values, and girls not quite sure of where they stand. And it's quite a difficult one. But if I were to have a daughter, that's what I would try and do, just to make her feel proud in herself, that you have everything you need as a female. You don't need to go looking elsewhere because this is what your religion gives you. This is it. Be proud, you know. Feel strong.
So just to clarify then, what exactly would you tell your daughter in terms of her position in Islam? Because I think everyone has a different idea of what is the position of girls in Islam. So just on a personal level, what would you tell her?
You are valued, you are respected, you are to be honored, you are to be loved, you are to be cherished, you are to experience goodness and kindness, and you are to be treated fairly and equally.
Right.
I think, you know.
And it's so simple. It's so simple to do.
Yeah, I can't think of anything more than that at the moment, but really, you can go out, you can get an education, you can work, and, you know, whatever happens in marital life, the adjustments and you know, the compromises that may need to be made, that's a different thing. But you are allowed to go out and seek an education. You are allowed to be something.
Yeah,
religion
definitely
doesn't restrict that.
Yeah, definitely. That's really powerful. I think that's, I don't even think you need anything more. If you're raising up a daughter and you make sure that these kind of values are part and parcel of her life, then she's less likely to, you know, face that kind of identity issue, you know, face the struggles that a lot of us do face as we're growing up. You've also raised a good point about culture, in terms of culture versus religion. There are some times when culture adds to the religious practices and it's healthy and good and great, no problem. But there are also some times when the culture does not really line up with religion. I mean, have you had any experience of that in in your professional setting, or even just in your personal life?
Yeah, I think in my personal life, even professional work as well, you know, there is that. You can't, the difficulty is, Sarah, is that you can't dissect one from the other. We are, at the end of the
Mhm.
day, we carry multiple identities. We are Muslim, we are South Asian, you know, your origin. And then
Mhm.
if you are living maybe in the UK, or if you're born and brought up in the UK, you're also carrying that identity as well. You
Mm.
can't you can't compartmentalize
Yeah.
your it is all sort of together, right? And it's trying to find a balance, and it's trying to find a system where all of those things work in harmony, and where you're not going to be taken advantage of, where you are going to be again respected and honored. And those things are really important. It's a difficult one, because I you know, I've done so much reading on it. It's not easy to adjust to these different identities,
Mm.
but these are our identities,
Yeah.
and working with that. And like you said, sometimes a culture, it brings in value. It's wonderful. You know, there are aspects of my culture which I really, really love, the South Asian culture. And there are aspects where I absolutely just like, I can't see this. I can't.
Mm.
No, it's not working. So
Yeah.
yeah.
But then, as you mentioned, I think earlier on in the video, you mentioned about this culture of comparison. And so
Mm,
if you see someone else doing it and then you're tempted to do it, but actually it's it's not really healthy, you know?
mm,
So there are quite,
yeah.
yeah, quite a bit of um, a lot of different cultural aspects that are not good.
Mm,
And when I say
mm,
comparison as a culture aspect, I mean that it is very much, I think, not just a South Asian, but just generally a Muslim. Even in the Arab culture, I know it's there. Even in Indian culture, it's there. Even in Pakistani culture, it's there. That comparison thing, it's such a big issue. It happens
such a big
all the
issue.
time. And
Yeah.
I think, as you were saying before, it is the start of a lot of different problems for young
Mm,
people.
mm. You
So,
kind of lose who you are, and the most important thing is to stay true to who you are and to be firm in that, you
yeah,
know. Um, but it's a tough one. Very easy to say these things, I know. Yeah.
yeah. But when it comes to practicing it, but I think there are a few things that we can do for kind of battling this comparison culture when people are comparing. Um, in that, don't be disrespectful, but then just say, well, they want to do that, but I want to do this. As a young
Yes.
person, this is what I
Yeah.
would like to do. Maybe I'm not good
Yeah.
at that. I've tried it before, or maybe I'm not particularly
Mm,
inclined to do that. Okay,
mm, mm.
or I have my own way of going about things and it works for me, you know.
Mm,
So I guess communication, then kind of just that open communication, saying,
yes.
I hear what you're telling me as a teacher or as a
Yeah.
parent, but
Mm,
I have a different idea and I'd rather try it my way. And if it doesn't work, then I'll come back to your way, you know?
yeah. 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 I'll consider what you're saying, basically.
Yeah,
I think
basically.
it's really, I think you've touched on a really important point, Sarah, as well, that can't, when you're growing up and you hear different advices that are given from parents, for example, or even teachers, don't brush it off completely. You know, be open to it, just as you want them to be open to wanting to hear what you have to say, or your take on something, or your approach. Also be open to what they're saying too, because you don't know, maybe it may work for you, maybe at the time now I can't consider that, but you don't know, right?
Yeah.
um be open. Yeah.
And you never know, it might just work for you in the future.
It's part of growth. If it doesn't work, then at least you know it didn't work.
Mm.
Yeah.
So I just wanted to kind of then wrap it up really well. So if there is anything that then you would like to, is there any kind of advice or final thoughts that you would like to share with children and young people right now that you think they can really benefit them, including how they can contact you or where they can find you on social media, perhaps?
One of the things I would say, and it's something that I've already mentioned, is to try and develop a really strong sense of self-worth and to develop self-esteem. Something that I see a lot in my work are confidence issues. Really talented young people who are amazing, you know, they're so good in what they do academically and even socially, but yet they have that I'm just not good enough, you know, because again of this comparison culture. So really focus on developing that sense of self-worth. You know, it's not just hearing it from other people that you are amazing, it's actually believing that and feeling it inside, and allowing yourself to feel that. That's something I would say.
That's brilliant.
But yes, I can be reached. I have, would you like me to give the
Yeah.
address? Or okay, so I have www.alpebble.com. That's where I do my therapy work.
Okay. If you could just spell it, because I didn't really quite catch it.
So it's www.alpebble.com.
Okay. Alpebble.com. Okay.
Yeah.
Brilliant. And that's where we can get all the information about your work and
yes,
your books, your beautiful books.
Yes.
Yeah. And all your research. Definitely. We'll check it out. I do strongly encourage everyone to check it out. And don't feel really shy or suffer in silence. If you do need help, then definitely do reach out.
Definitely.
That is, it's what you need at the end of the day. If you need the support, then you need it, and there's no two ways about it.
Yes.
You know?
Yeah.
Thank you very much, Samia, for that wonderful.
Thank you.
I know it's been a while, but
and it's been a struggle to get here, isn't it? But we did it in the end.
We did
with
it.
You in Kenya.
Yeah,
by the sea.
By the sea. I'm by the sea. But that, I think that just shows that keep working hard. Hard work can really get you there. Hard work has got us here to this episode, and it can get you to great heights, inshallah.
Inshallah.
Yeah.
Inshallah.
All
Thank
right.
you so much. It's been lovely. Yeah.
Thank you so much for staying tuned, and we hope you enjoyed this episode. Before you leave, we want to ask you for a huge favor. Please, could you leave us a review? It's really important for us to know how well we are doing, and we also want to know your suggestions on future topics and guests and any other feedback that you may have. So please do let us know in the comment section, or you can email us. We have a new email called podcast@inspiritedminds.org.uk. That's podcast@inspiritedminds.org.uk. We're also on Patreon. It's very, very important for you to know that any and all donations that you make go towards the sustainability of all of our projects. So, and as a volunteer-led charity, we really need your donations to keep going. جزاك الله خيرا والسلام عليكم ورحمة الله وبركاته.